So Washington, now with a couple hundred men, marches deeper into the Ohio country and finds the French fort that they had heard about, which turns out to be larger and more extensive fort than they were bargained for. This is the French fort is called Fort Duquesne. This is a model of it here. Here's the inner fortress, and then they have the outer wall. You'll note that it's at a strategic location where the Allegheny and Monongahela rivers join and form the Ohio River. So you've got natural defenses on either side, inner wall, outbuildings. I mean, it's pretty impressive complex, and Washington, quickly concludes that he doesn't have enough men to attack and overcome this fort. So he falls back a few miles away and builds his own fort. Here is a modern reconstruction of Washington's nearby fort called Fort Necessity, which is not a terrible fort to throw up on short notice, but certainly it's a much less impressive fort than Fort Duquesne, which the French had been building for months. And so Washington and his men are crowded here inside Fort Necessity, trying to figure out what to do next. And meanwhile, it's clear that the French are rallying their Indian allies in the area for an attack. That's why they built the fort. It's clear also that Washington and his forces are badly outnumbered. This is so clear that the half-king quits. He's like, you guys are fools, you're all going to die, my folks and I are gone. And they left. So now it's just Washington, his Virginia militiamen, some South Carolina militiamen, and a few British regular army. They can hear the drumming from the woods outside, the chanting, the singing, the screaming, the war whoops, and it sounds like there's thousands of Indians out there, and there's it's raining buckets. They've there's not enough shelter there for many guys. The shelter, in fact, was reserved for the gunpowder, but the roof leaks, so the gunpowder gets wet anyway. Wet gunpowder, not useful in a battle, obviously. His militiamen are so scared, they break into the rum supply and drink all the rum. So by the time the attack comes, a lot of Washington's men are too drunk to fight. Now, Washington, of course, ordered them not to get smashed. He's like, guys, we're going to get attacked in just a few hours. I order you not to do that. But they figure they're going to die, so they're done listening to their officers. And indeed, when the attack comes, it is a debacle. Even the militiamen who are sober enough to fight are not very good. They're too scared to fight. Some of them run. Some of them freeze. Really, only Washington and the British Army regulars acquit themselves honorably here, stand and fight, but they're outnumbered and overwhelmed, and they have to surrender. So Washington has lost. He won that first little skirmish, but this is first big battle, and he's lost it. The French are now in a position to dictate surrender terms. Their position was basically, hey, look, we can keep you guys prisoner here indefinitely, or you guys could sign this surrender document, and we'll let most of you go home. The surrender document, of course, was in French. Washington doesn't speak or read French. He's kind of embarrassed about that. Washington's from a family with some money. He's got a good education, but not a great education. Gentlemen at the time were expected to be fluent in French, and he's ashamed that he's not. He does have a Dutch guy on his staff who's his designated translator, because the Dutchman speaks English and French. And so he asks his translator, this Dutch guy, to read the document to see if this is something he can sign. And the Dutch guy says, yeah, it's fine. So Washington signs it. Now, the French thoughtfully write out a copy for him as well and send it home with him. So Washington gets to lead the remains of his force back to Virginia and present the surrender document to the royal governor, who, of course, as a gentleman, reads French just fine, and he learns that Washington has just, in this surrender document, accepted that France owns the Ohio country, not Britain, and also Washington confessed to the assassination of that officer that they captured in the first skirmish, the one that the Half King killed. Now that's embarrassing. Of course, the governor's realistic about this. He understands that Washington would have signed just about anything to get his men out of there alive and back home. So, of course, the British are not going to abide by this surrender document that Washington signed. They don't think that Washington, as a lieutenant colonel in the Virginia militia, has the authority to sign away the Ohio country. The British Empire is going to go to war now with France over the Ohio country. And, well, there are consequences for Washington's failure. The governor offers Washington a choice between accepting a demotion, a lower rank, or Washington can quit, and Washington decides, in fact, to quit to avoid getting demoted. Now, that's sad, but Washington will be back. He is going to find another way to continue serving his country. He is determined to repair his reputation after the damage that it suffered from the defeat in Fort Necessity and his signing of the surrender document. More on that next time. Thanks, everybody. Bye.